You are watching the Fayetteville Government Channel. Up next, full coverage of the latest meeting of the Telecommunications Board. The Telecommunications Board is composed of citizen volunteers and meets on the third Thursday of each month. This board advises the City Council regarding telecommunications issues and assists city staff with the administration of the city's public access, education, and government television channels. And now, the Telecommunications Board.
It's 5:30 and we have a quorum, so I will call the July 19, 2012 meeting of the Telecommunications Board to order. First we want the roll call. Pennington's here. Mr. Smith? Here. Mr. Herrig? Here. Mr. Goggins? Here. Ms. Shepard? Here. Mr. Spearman? I haven't heard from Mitchell. Okay. And Michael Spencer is in Washington, D.C. on business. Next we move into approval of the June meeting minutes.
Dispense with reading the minutes and approving this submitted in writing.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, a motion by Mr. Smith, a second by Mr. Goggins. All those in favor of approving the June meeting minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. The ayes have it. Next, approval of this month's meeting agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, changes, or motions?
I do believe that Ms. Shelley will have, would like to add an item of new business.
Which will be included in my report, but it will be the same as new business. So I will go over it in my report and then we can deal with it under new business.
Okay.
Question.
Uh-huh.
Doesn't have to be on the agenda before we can deal with it.
I
That's
think
what
we need to put it on
Okay.
there.
It's an addendum to our report and a request for increased funding for public access, which is included in the addendum.
I think that's something that somebody left in here.
It's a lot.
Move reading it, yeah.
We don't have to talk about
Is
pensions.
there a second?
Second.
All right, a motion by Mr. Smith and second by Mr. Herrig to approve the agenda as amended to include an item of new business for an addendum to the public access television report and a request for increased funding for public access television. All those say in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. The ayes have it. Next, we'll move into reports. First, Mr. Giesler.
Glad to see everybody again. It's a new month. I hope everybody is being successful and not being too hot. It is unbelievably hot outside. The government channel and the television center are operating smoothly. Some of the highlights that we have seen in the last month for the government channel, we are putting some new programming together. One of the first things we've done is if you've had an opportunity to watch in the last couple of days, you've seen a new studio set for the Mayor's Corner. We've enhanced that, updated it, did a redesign. We think that is very good. It's very fun to see. It's nice to see. It's very watchable. The basic show is staying the same, but we just upgraded the look and made it more comfortable for the guests and such. So we're proud of that. The mayor's real happy about it too, so that's always a good thing. We finished a new History Minute segment on the National Cemetery, and we are also reinvigorating and restarting a series that was lapsed a little bit, and then we're bringing it back, called the Volunteer Spotlight. And we're doing it in conjunction with a program that the mayor's office is doing, where a resident of Fayetteville that is involved in volunteerism and does a lot of work, volunteer work for the city, is spotlighted once each month and recognized by the mayor, and we do a short video piece, 1 minute for them. Some of the recent spotlight have been people like Mr. Dave Bowman and Mr. Richard Kleehouse, and we're working on one right now. We just finished one for Ms. Cindy Cope, and we're working on a new one right now that will start in August. But I'm not going to say the name because I don't want it to be out there as a surprise for people. So, those are some of the things that we do to enhance the programming that we do on the channel, in addition to the meetings and things that we cover. And there hasn't been any major changes in meeting coverage or anything like that to report. The remodel of the control room areas and such is moving ahead. It's a slow process, and Building Services, who is our partner in that, they have other things that they're working on as well. So we try to coordinate everything appropriately with other city departments and divisions as that goes forward. The last thing, not the last thing, as I usually do, in the packet you see some information about viewership on our on-demand channels, both YouTube and Granicus. And every once in a while you're going to see something on the YouTube report where we talk about the top 10 videos. And it looks like a very strange, number 2 looks really strange. It's like just a jumble of letters and numbers. What happens is that sometimes with YouTube is when we delete a video and add a new one that has the same name, it doesn't know what to call that, and that's actually Animals That Need Homes. I do know that for sure, that number 2 slot is an Animals That Need Homes. It was replaced by the one below it. So sometimes YouTube gets confused, and that's what that is. And we're going to try to find a workaround that for that issue, so that these reports are a little bit more clear on that. The other thing that I would point out is if you'll look down there at number 9, Green Your Life Household Cleaners had 33 views in the last month. That's another series that we have jump started the production on, and it's not done on a regular basis. We do maybe one a month, maybe one every 5 weeks, but it's about a 2.5 minute program where the city is the city of Fayetteville is very committed to sustainability initiatives, and that's one of the things that we do to try to help communicate to the residents different things that they can do to help be more sustainable, and tips that are easy to implement in their everyday lives. We'll have another one of those coming out pretty quickly on that. So as you can see here, there were over 1,300 views of programs off of the YouTube channel, and for Granicus, 632 views for that. Interestingly, the most popular Granicus program last month was the City Council meeting from June 5th. We have continued to work on the transition of taking all of the meetings and making sure that they're on Granicus, and all of the non-meeting programming to making sure that it's on YouTube, so it makes it easier for the viewers to know where to go for different programming. But it also gives us an opportunity to improve the actual technical quality of the programming that's on YouTube, because it allows us to have that video out there at a higher level, at a higher quality level. We actually now are doing most of the non-meeting programming in high definition production. So if you watch something on YouTube, you can watch it in 720p high def. We can't telecast on Cox or AT&T at that resolution. They don't provide us with that capability, but we can do that on YouTube. So that makes things, I believe, makes things nicer for the viewers, and enhances our service for them. Finally, this is something that I didn't think I would have to talk about for quite some time, but we are unfortunately losing one of our team members. Prue Gallagher has decided that it's time for her to move on to other opportunities in her life, and she will be pursuing those and leaving the team of the government channel and the city of Fayetteville after 17 years of service to the citizens and the residents of Fayetteville. Dedicated, strongly supportive service from Prue, and we really, really appreciate everything that she's done for the last almost 2 decades. And it's going to be tough to replace her very unique set of skills and talents, but we're going to miss her. But I want to tell Prue that we appreciate everything that she's done for us at the government channel, and also for public access television, because she's been very involved in public access television for many, many years as well. And hopefully she can still do some of that as we go forward. But she will, next month, at the end of July, we will say goodbye to Fru, and we'll miss her. Does anybody have any questions about the operations of the television center or the government channel?
I would suggest on YouTube, instead of trying to delete a file and getting this kind of result, if you just make it private setting, it'll be on there as long as they exist in their current form. And you can always make it, if somebody wants to see it, you can make it available to them.
We'll take a look at it and see if that will help us also.
Cost no more.
Yep, and keep our analytics accurate as well. Thank you all.
I had a question. You mentioned that you couldn't cable cast in high definition on Cox or Uverse.
Right.
Is that something that's going to change, or?
I don't anticipate it. The value of bandwidth that would be required, as most people remember, in December 2010, the Cox Cable took the channel from an analog channel to digital to save on system bandwidth. They would probably have to. It's my understanding that for us to have enough bandwidth to telecast on the cable system in high def, that it would require about 6 times more bandwidth than what we have now. And I don't anticipate that they would want to do that, to provide us with that much. So I don't, like I said, I don't anticipate that we'll have a high def channel on that. AT&T never has been had any of that capability, and they pretty much relegate the access channels, as we've discussed many times. The way they process the data and the video for access channels is different than how they process it for commercial channels. And for a viewer to even see them, they have to dig down through a menu and such, so they're even encoded differently. But does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you, Keith.
But you are buying high def capable equipment now.
Actually, short answer, yes. Actually, it's very difficult to buy standard def equipment anymore that would have any of the specifications that we would need. Even consumer grade, consumer level equipment is pretty much all high definition equipment.
So the files will be usable if we should get that capability.
If we ever get the capability of cable casting on Cox in high definition, we will. At this point in time, we don't have the equipment to do that. But it would not be difficult for us to get the equipment to do that. It's kind of a two-way street on that situation.
So
but yes, it'd be possible.
So the files have to be reduced for broadcast on our cable cast or AT&T from what we actually record right now.
Yeah, actually what you will see in watching the government channel now is because we are producing our non-meeting programming in high definition. You'll see something you've probably seen on commercial channels where our non-meeting programming is what we call letterbox. You see the 2 black bars at the top. That's because we produce it in high def. And when we produce it in high definition, it's in a wider video format than standard definition, which is more square. So when it's telecast on a standard def channel, you get the full width, but to do that, you get the black bars at the top and the bottom, and we call that letterbox format. So we're not telecasting in high def, but the format is kind of a widescreen format. Now, if you requested a file of a program like a volunteer spotlight or a history minute, we can provide that in high def, in a file format. Not in a playable format yet, but in a file format. We're moving towards that. It's a transition. In terms of telecast, we will be on standard def until such time as we may be able to do something else. But that's another advantage of us having a YouTube channel, is that we can distribute that non-meeting programming in high def on the YouTube channel. meetings will probably stay standard def for the indefinite future. Any other questions?
Thanks, Fritz. Thank you for. Next, we'll move on to the Fayetteville Public Access Television Report. Ms. Shelley.
Greetings, everyone. I would first like to echo Fritz's comments about fruit, and from the public access side of it, we will certainly hope to see her more as a public access producer. She's been a long-time public access producer and done some of the best shows that we've telecast. Not that I care about content in any way, for the record. But,
Did you rank it?
yeah, I'm not ranking anything, but and also one of the most likely producers to step up when someone contacts us about a meeting or something that they care about and they want to see if a public access producer will cover it. So thank you for all of that and everything you will hopefully continue to do for it. Well, it's the mid-year report in front of you and some pretty exciting news, mostly with regard to number of new trainees, meaning that we're getting new people in the door, our outreach efforts are paying off. The only downside is we're still seeing some slump in equipment usage, but June did show a rise over the previous month, over May, which is a good sign. And most notably, this quarter registered the highest number of people taking orientation in the past 2 years since we've been collecting data. So that's really good news. That means more people than ever in 1 month came through those doors that had never been at public access before and took the classes. As with the end of the first quarter, I have an overview that you can look at. What I did a little bit differently this time is I made the comparisons. If it wasn't the same as the second quarter of last year, I actually showed you what those numbers were. So I think for the sake of our time together, we could review just this at-a-glance schedule. It'll tell you most of what's going on, and then if you have questions about the rest of the report, if you've had an opportunity to read it, I'd be happy to answer those. Total class participants, 64 versus 43. So that's a pretty significant increase when you look at the number of class participants over last year. I also want to make an observation that's not captured on this paper. Last year, the second quarter was our slowest time at public access. And as you'll see later reflected, almost half of the candidate producers in the second quarter of last year were test outs, the high school students from Fayetteville video classes. This year, we had no test outs. These are people coming in the door, taking all of the classes, going through everything we want users to go through to become a candidate producer. So that's another good indicator that the second quarter of this year was not the slump that we saw last year. New trainees are up. No-shows and cancellations are down by only 75% of last year's total, which is great.
What are you doing different on that, may I ask? Is there anything anecdotal that you...
We are doing some contacting people, but no, there's not. I don't know the answer to that.
That's
to be honest.
significant.
It is very significant. And what you'll see for the first time, which was really disappointing, the no-shows for June happened in the workshop. We had 8 participants scheduled and only 3 showed up. And it was a workshop everybody seemed to be very excited about. So again, we don't know. And I personally sent reminders to people that day for that workshop. And so we haven't yet figured out that. We're glad that it's
a good path.
Yes,
The trend is a positive
The
trend.
trend is positive. We don't know the secret. Again, candidate producers, and let me just say, as of tomorrow, we will already have 6 candidate producers for the third quarter, which is less than a month into the first month of the quarter and halfway to our quota for the quarter. So these June numbers have continued into July, which again is traditionally one of our slowest months because of heat and vacation. Short take participation is another thing to note. It's the highest number of short take participants for any quarter in the past 2 years in this quarter, which is significant. We're doing our best to get more people in the station, though that's coming somewhat slower. We're doing great with the short takes we're doing at events like the farmers market. You'll see the slump start here with the checkouts and equipment usage. However, if we look at June compared to May, as I said, the numbers were up. And June numbers were above average in Edit Bay 5 studio usage and field cameras. So they're above the monthly average, they're just a slump from where they were before. Field camera checkouts are way down. Fritz and I have spoken quite a bit about this. We continue to look, and Greg and I had an initial meeting. One of our plans, if Bruce didn't mention it last month, is that once we have the new studio together, once students are back in school, starting in August or September, we're going to do a couple of focus groups where we'll bring students in for one group, and then the board also wants to bring just general community members in to do actual focus groups on public access and see what do you want from us, what's working, what's not, and my appreciation to you, Greg, for helping to launch that and working with me on that. So we hope to see part of that will give us the idea, why are people taking the classes, but then not necessarily using the equipment in a congruent manner? Why aren't those numbers also rising? So we're looking at that. Programs requested, local and outside, are up. And the local programs were up over last quarter, if I believe, but still up in general over last year. Inside programs are up. Everything else is looking great as far as usage, and down through the wards and the grandfathered usage, which if you'll look at, for instance, Ward 2 usage is significantly up, almost double. But when you look at the 2 wards, 3 and 4, that are down, we see the same happen, a significant decrease, almost double in Ward 4, but pretty much congruent in Ward 3. So we're still getting usage from across the city, and we're still having new people come in, which we think is great. And if you have any questions, I won't go into, there's a lot of detail throughout the report, but that is a good summary of what's going on at public access, and we really hope to see those trends continue. Any questions about that before I go into the addendum?
I think having a booth at Razor Bash is going to be really good for y'all.
Yeah, that's great. Bruce had that idea and set that up. We're really pleased. I've never actually attended Razor Bash, so I'm anxious to see what it's like. But
It's a lot of fun. You get
Yeah.
free lunch.
yeah,
All the pizza places set
right. And we think there's a real opportunity, especially since Lindsley and Julie did include public access in the orientations for new students. That'll be a great follow-up to that. We're going to be doing the focus groups, so we really see that as an untapped pool. I know that almost all of the international students that come through public access from Spring International are very interested in taking classes if they have the time. So if we can get the students that stay here, not the ones that just cycle through after a month, I think we'll really be doing great. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Seeing none, I did put an addendum that was pieced together. The second half of it is new business, so I'll wait till we get to that item in the agenda. But the first half is follow-up, Stephen, to what Bruce had asked you. You had said you had commented at the last telecom meeting on demographics, and did we have any idea on demographics? I will say these are observed demographics. This isn't the demographics, the exact demographics. We don't collect that data, but as you know, people have to show proof of residence. And most of the people who do that provide a photo ID with date of birth on there. So this is anecdotal, but I believe, based on our experience and observation, that these percentages are pretty much what we see regarding the demographics coming in as trainees. Now, these would only be trainees, not all users, not program requesters and short-take participants. So we see that 70% of users are male and 30% female. 90% are white or Caucasian, 3% African American, 7% Latino, and those were the only, there were no apparent other nationalities or races represented. As far as age, we see the 15 to 20 is at 30%, as is the 31 to 40-year-old range. 21 to 30 is 18, 41 to 50 is 4%, and then we see another 18% at 50 plus. So I think that's pretty good across the board demographics with regard to age. What we would need to do if you wanted us to track this more realistically, we would probably have to implement something starting in 2013. So my question to you is that something that you think would be helpful, and we will certainly make it happen?
My question wasn't for my information, just that it might be easier to market if you knew that
Right,
it was
right.
coming in. So
Oh, absolutely. No, I think it's great information. And I think clearly we're on the right track with marketing the college students in that age range, because that's almost half of the demographic if you add the 15 to 30-year-olds in there. And it seems to be still a predominantly male interest, which I think probably or maybe across the board in technology video productions, but I don't know. That's just me talking.
I don't know where it would come up in your discussion, but I was reading the equipment utilization. The television center made a transition something. I don't know how that works. It was been used that way before, but anyway, the Edit Bay 7 has been
Right.
changed for use as a 3D station
Right.
by the staff. That's the staff thing. Would you tell us about that? I've
Sure,
never seen
and Fritz could probably speak
3D
to that as well.
television. I know it exists.
Well, 3D are the graphics. It's really 3D graphics programming that both the government channel staff and public access staff are using to do like our promos and station IDs, those kinds of things. It's a graphics program. My understanding requires quite a large bit of RAM to operate. But again, the technical questions would need to go to Fritz. That has always traditionally been the edit bay that our staff has done most of its work in for public access television anyway, from editing short takes to any of those types of things we do, creating our promos. So it just made sense that edit bay be transitioned to that. It will still be available for public use if edit bays 5 and 6 become way too full. But until that point, we are channeling the public access users into 5 and 6, which is where most of our users were editing their pieces anyway, and we'll be reserving Edit Bay 7 for staff use.
Well, before we jump off with that question of mine, maybe somebody else might tell us. If we're not doing high def, how are we doing 3D? Will that be seen only on the internet, or will it be somebody with a 3D television be able to see it even though we're on a lower tier or wherever we are? Ooh, sorry.
It's not 3D television. It's the workstation that we have is to create 3D graphics and 3D animation. So
Which is not,
it's not the 3D movie television, wear the glasses 3D. It's not that kind of 3D. When we're doing, if you watch the government channel and you see the station ID where the Fayetteville flies out and you see the skyline, that's three-dimensional animation in our TV world. And so to do that, and we also have that. Understand that also the government channel does at times provide internal video production for different departments and divisions in the city. That's another tool that we'll be able to use to help support some of that effort as well.
when you see the buildings rise or development projected or something.
So, and you'll see that actually was done on a lower end type of program. We've since have upgraded our software, and we're working on updating that ID and doing some other 3D animation that you'll see on different pieces as we go forward. But that's what we're talking about when we talk about 3D animation. Or if you think about meetings that you may have seen, like where you see the engineering department or the planning department, someone might do a walkthrough of a development, like where you'll see that kind of thing. That's 3D animation, and we use that system for that. When we looked at Edit Room 7 for in part of the whole remodel project that we're doing, we needed to find a place that we could create a very conducive work atmosphere for that type of activity. It takes a lot of concentration, and it needs the person who's doing it really needs to have some good isolation from
from being disturbed, so they can really focus on what they're doing. So we looked at the equipment usage numbers over the last few months and realized that where things are right now, and we're always open to adjust what we need to do to serve the public, but where things are right now with the amount of total availability of hours of editing time amongst the 3 rooms, we were only using our entire editing capacity at less than 30%. So to distribute what was there between 2 rooms, I said, let's try it and see if we can use this edit room as for this. We can overflow into it. The public needs it. They'll have priority. But other than that, we'll set these things up in here. We haven't run into any issues, have we?
No.
So if it does become an issue, and like Ann said, edit room 5 and 6, I mean, the usage explodes, and we need to bring that room back into public use, and we're ready, willing, able to do that.
Last time you mentioned you're looking at a less complex editing system.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any update on that?
We're working on, I think we've pretty much decided that Adobe Premiere Elements as an editing software package for entry level will be a very workable package. It's very cost effective. I think we can get 2 licenses for that, for the public edit rooms, for less than $750, which would be great. I think it's maybe even less than that as we go forward and do some other licensing packages and stuff like that. So that's where we are on that, and we'll hope to implement that with some of the other things we're doing in the 4th quarter.
And that's one of the things I'm excited to vet in the focus group situation. Will that make a difference? I mean, just in our meetings about it, and as you can tell, I'm not the techie in the group. I'm very excited about that personally. It seems much more user-friendly and accessible to people like me. So I'm hoping that will be the case for all the public as well.
I think you're actually going to touch on that a little bit here in a minute, aren't you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice segue. That's it for my report until we get to the new business section.
Any other questions? If not, there's no old business, so we'll move immediately to new business. Last month, Michael Spencer had asked me to have a discussion of the availability of internet in Fayetteville for citizens. Since he's not here, I would suggest just moving on. He also wanted to ask if anybody had an issue with him participating by telephone, because he thinks he might be out of town next month as well. I know we've done it in the past, and we don't want to encourage it every time, but I think in limited circumstances, it's probably okay. And he can't vote, but he can talk. Any objection to passing that?
And it is because he's on a work-related assignment out of town, right? It's like a long-term,
Yeah. Any other issues?
I have no objection to it. I know over the years we have done it, and it does work. If the phones work, that's what it takes.
I think the last time we had a discussion about the internet, it was Justin Tennant, and he participated by telephone about 2.5 years ago or something.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, we'll, if y'all are okay, just moving on, we'll move on to Ms. Shelley's request for increased funding.
Hey, we can only talk, we can't vote. Maybe we should call in. I like that theory. No, just kidding. All right. You have before you, this is an addendum and new business because of timing. We would like your media, as the public service provider, are requesting an increase in our funding from the city for fiscal year 2013 from $93,000 annually to $105,000 annually, which is a $12,000 increase. The reason that we are bringing this forward now is there are impending deadlines that came upon us. Fritz and I had talked about, it was last year about mid-August that we started negotiating the fine-tuning and looking at the details of the contract. So that's about to start again in mid-August, that we'll be looking at the details of the contract for next year between our organizations. Second is the City Council looks at the 2013 proposed budget in September. But more of a deadline is we received our annual, as any outside agency that uses city money gets the annual request for public funds application form. And the deadline on this is August 6th. So we have not completed that. I just opened it up this week after being out of town. So when we do complete it though, we want to make sure that we include our request for increased funding. So that's why all of this just sort of came to the perfect storm of this is the time, if we're going to do it, to ask for that funding. How we justify that increase, we see that we have, as a service provider over the last 2 years, met or exceeded all the contractual obligations, whether explicit or implicit. And we really want to expand the services in 2013, but under the current contract see that as somewhat problematic. We would like to open more than 40 hours a week, have the facility open 9 to 5 on Tuesdays, which is currently open only 9 to 1, and add an additional day on Saturdays or additional hour for folks who come in on the weekends, and open from 9 to 2, which gives us an extra 5 hours per week. Additionally, we have had a lot of conversations with Fritz and see the future of public access really requiring some advanced courses for people, such as in different editing softwares that would be above and beyond the standard classes that we've always offered. So that's how we're justifying that increase. Fritz can speak more. He knows more of the history of how much the service provider has been paid and when increases were made. What we present this to you. Of course, the board and staff would love your full endorsement of our idea, but we understand that it's your purview to be the objective body that will review this and make a recommendation to the City Council whether you endorse or not. And we would like to ask you to form either a committee or task force or however you would like to proceed in looking at this issue so that you can report back at your August meeting in time for reporting or sending your findings to the City Council in September.
I make a motion that we approve this request and immediately proceed to recommend this to the City Council. We've been trying to get more budgeted for this public television for many years, and people before I joined the board, which was nearly 5 years ago. So,
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
I'd like to see it go to committee. We'll have time to discuss it and bring it back.
Okay. Is there, I guess you have to turn the request for public funds in on August 6th. That's
Yes.
a more detailed.
I brought a copy, but it's a very detailed report that the budget office asks for every year from every agency. We've always filled it out, but we've never asked for an increase in my tenure. But as a matter of protocol, yes, we have to, and we will be filling it out, but this has a requested increase.
Okay.
That's to meet their deadline, but whether City Council or not approves, it really is you are the body to kind of look more into that, as I understand, and make that recommendation.
But we can do that in our August meeting, I think, and still meet the council's deadline.
I would think that the City Council would put more weight behind one of our recommendations if we looked like we had put an effort into it. I mean, I fully support an increase in the budget for y'all, but I want it to look like we've deliberated on it, looked at the proposal, and considered everything. That's just my feeling. So,
I guess I have a question, because if this motion passes, the questions would be out of order.
yeah.
Why did you choose to add 4 hours to Tuesday and only 1 hour to Saturday? Is that, do you have some indication that it's...
Sure, our busiest days of the week are Monday and Thursday, always have been. And those are the days we're open 9 to 9 because we do want to have weeknights that we are open. Tuesday is the only weekday that we close that early in the day, and we don't currently offer a class on that day because it's such a short day. We think that having it be a regular business day like Friday is also 9 to 5, and it is third in line in busyness to Monday and Thursday. We think having that consistency throughout the week would be better for the users. And honestly, we don't have that much usage on Saturday. I don't know which is slower, right off the top of my head, Saturday or Tuesday, but prior to this year, we were open every Saturday till 2. We would like to extend that. That's also mirrors the hours of the farmers market when people tend to be downtown during the summer. So that's why.
Okay. Thanks.
Mhm.
And this is just my opinion, but when we submit a recommendation to the city council, I think that it would carry more weight if we've enumerated the reasons that we think public access is deserving of this funding. I think the committee has come a long way in the last few years, and I would hope they would take our recommendation seriously, but it also needs to be as detailed as we can make it. But
Would it be out of order for me to ask Fritz a question?
no, go ahead.
Okay, I was hoping, as I alluded to earlier, that you could comment on the history of funding, and since it's prior to mine.
Sure. The public access operator has not received an increase in funding since 2005. In 2005, the funding was increased to $69,000 a year, from $69,000 a year to $93,000 a year. That occurred, like I said, in 2005, and it has been level since then.
Question here. The $12,000 primarily for wages?
Yeah, it's for wages. We wouldn't add any new employees, but we would add those hours of being open longer, which means our staff would be taken away from any of the work we do for your media and specifically working for public access that day.
Any further discussion? We do have a motion on the floor to approve to forward a recommendation to City Council to approve the funding increase from public access. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, no?
No.
No. That's a tie.
You have
So
to
the
break
motion,
it.
well, no, it's 3-3. So the motion does not carry.
So,
Motion doesn't carry. Any other motions on the issue?
I move the chair appoint a committee to review this request and report back to next meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on that, on the motion? If there's no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no? The ayes have it. We're limited to 3 on subcommittees. Mr. Smith?
I'd nominate Mr. Shepherd.
Second.
Ms. Smith, would you be available to serve? Mr. Shepherd?
I will attend, yes.
Okay.
Sir.
You want to do it?
I'm happy to do it.
All right. We got our 3.
The S's. Stick with the S's.
This is, oh, that's true, yes. All right. Well, thank y'all for your willingness to serve. And we look forward to the report at the August, whatever that day is, the August meeting. Anything else? Committee reports? Then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, a motion by Mr. Perry, second by Mr. Goggins. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. This meeting is adjourned.